Safi and Marco on a hot day dishing out on the movies, but today we are doing the semi-final episode number, would you say 14 of Masterchef Junior. So like I said, it's the semi-finals. We're down to 3 contestants. The episode's about weeding it down to 2 in preparation for the final episode, which is actually next week. Although tomorrow night there'll be some kind of blooper, weird episode tomorrow. I don't even know what that's about. But the final one only has 2 contestants, and it will be next Wednesday.
It'll be a 2-hour finale.
Oh, it's a 2-hour finale.
And they're going to have to do, I guess, this is what's really queer already ahead of the finale. Apparently, they're not going to have to make an appetizer. They're going to have to spend 1 hour making an entree and then 1 hour making a dessert. And that's it. Isn't that weird, Safi? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this season is bizarre.
For kids. Oh, boy. Okay, so that's what this episode is about, just weeding it down to 2 people. You have 3 contestants. You have Leah, who is making
a chef.
A chef.
And okay, I'll just
do it.
Go ahead, since I think you can't handle the heat, and if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah. It's very hot here.
It's not that hot in the car, though.
Well, that's because you just got out here.
Well, anyways, semi-final.
Go ahead.
Safi, fuck off. The semi-final, this already, before we even watched the episode, this is probably the most underwhelming group of top 3 contestants in MasterChef anything. Well, actually, no, they're way better than some of the adult ones that we've seen, like, Cesar and people, seasons like that. Oh, God. But this final group of 3 people, it's not that we don't like them. It's that they're not very competitive at all. Like, they're basically friends, and it feels more like a charity season than a regular season of a competition. And I'm sorry, but this is a competition show, and it doesn't have that feeling anymore. I am glad that the certain person's gone from the season because he totally ruined the whole season. But now I'm just feeling like just underwhelmed completely. This episode was totally underwhelming, and the top 2 are extremely underwhelming. And all that I can think is that it's a little contrived to where if you look at the final 2, they're like the final 2 of season 1. And so you have to think maybe they thought about that and they wanted to contrive that way. And when you think about the challenge they had to do for the semifinal, I mean, what a dumb challenge. I've been watching, Safi hasn't been watching. I've been watching the early seasons so that I can rank all the seasons.
I've only watched the first one. That's it.
You've watched season 5, 6, and 7, I believe, as well.
Oh.
But I watched these earlier seasons, and it's so much different. There's so much more competition going on, especially season 3. And in season 3's semifinal, I would say the semifinal was actually better than the finale. And it was actually a lot more competitive, a lot more intense than this. I mean, it would be a strong contrast if Safi went back and watched that and then watched this. All they had to do was make raspberry desserts. And first they did a technical challenge, but they had to make these raspberry desserts. And you'd think this is going to be a really easy, fun time for them. It's not going to... Oh, no. It was extremely difficult. It was like hell for them. And it made for such an entertaining episode. On the flip side, you have season 8, episode 14 semifinal episode, which feels like a couple of kids playing in the McDonald's playhouse. And their challenge is they have to make a dish that represents their families. As if Leah hasn't already been doing that the entire season. Right, Safi?
Yes, her parents have a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
So what do you think Leah makes? Chinese food.
And she's been doing that the whole season.
Well, her whole life at home. So she really has almost a one-up on anybody else if that's what she is allowed to cook. Which she is, because what Marco said, they had to represent her family. Well, Chinese food represents her family. They have a Chinese restaurant. They're Chinese.
Oh, the challenge was also, not only do you have to make a dish that represents your family, but you also have to make 3 copies of it. And so that was the key.
Yes.
You have to make 3 copies of it.
It was a foreshadowing of what was to come.
One for each judge. And I just thought, what a stupid idea. I mean, it's not because, it is also because it's upsetting who went home. Because she was the one who should have probably gone to the finale. That would have been nice to see. But it's the fact that it's such a stupid idea of, like, we'll talk about it. But just to say, like, you screwed up one dish, and then the other 2 dishes are perfect.
Perfect.
It's
and
like,
the judges even said that.
That's just stupid. That's stupid. I mean, in all the other seasons, in the semifinals, they've not had to make copies of dishes that are all perfect copies of each other. And so now that they have to, I despise that challenge idea. I think it's absolutely asinine, and they should not have had to do that. That was a waste of time. I mean, it was just so underwhelming. It was like they were trying to make a challenge where there wasn't a challenge. And what they really should have done, in my opinion, and this would also have fixed Leah's playing it safe routine, which, her and Gummy Worm Molly, they both like to play it safe. Except at least Gummy Worm Molly tried to do something different recently before she went home. But what they should have done is had them switch the dishes they had to make. So the dish that Grayson wanted to make, Leah should have had to make that. Mm. And then the dish that Ivy wanted to make, Grayson should have had to make. And then the dish that Leah wanted to make, Ivy should have had to make. And that would have been a good challenge for a semifinal. Instead of the stupid thing where it's like, you have to make 3 copies of the dish. Isn't that intense? Like, no, it wasn't. This episode sucked. It was so boring and just, ugh. Like, I don't even care. Like, it's gotten to the point where I don't care. Like, I care more about watching season 4, rewatching season 5 and 6 and 7 more than this. So I'm really underwhelmed and disappointed. Safi?
Well, I don't know what to say. I just, it's to me it was like a foreshadowing when they said they had to make a dish for each judge. There's 3 judges, so 3 dishes, 3 identical dishes, and that was like a foreshadowing. And because one of the person who was eliminated, 2 were perfect, but 1 wasn't, and that it was what, underdone? Yeah, it was underdone. The other 2,
perfectly
perfect.
cooked.
How does that even happen?
Isn't that shitty?
And
it's because she said it was because the pieces were cut in different sizes, and Daphne's piece was bigger, and so it needed more time to cook.
Oh, see, and they always warn about that when you
but still,
cut things. They have to all be the same, so they cook the same.
Still, Safi, what if she hadn't have screwed that up? Like, just think about that.
Well, that's what we both wonder, because she has been right on target every single challenge.
Yeah, this is the only time she's screwed up.
Yeah, only time. I mean, she has come out every single time.
Like, if she had done, and we're talking about, of course, My Fair Masterchef Junior.
And this is the little girl who wears pearls.
I would just think, like, if she hadn't have screwed up, who would they have sent home? Like, would they have sent home Leah for playing it safe for the millionth time? I don't think so. Would they have sent Grayson home, the Wonder Boy?
Who's gifted, he is very articulate, and he tries things. That's the thing about him.
No, they wouldn't have sent him home.
He tried new dishes, so I don't know what they would have done.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying, is that, like, that's why this was really underwhelming, was because it felt like they were not being competitive, and they were just sort of just playing it safe and having, like, fun. And it was really queer how they had an audience watching the semifinal, and you had the parents of each contestant, and they're, like, cheering for them. It was just really queer. Like, ugh. Like, this is what's wrong with 2022. Like, this is why it was much better in season 3, aka 2015, because they wouldn't have done that in 2015. You know, it feels like it's 2022, so, you know, everything has to be a lot nicer, and we have to, you know, it's terrible. It's like, this is supposed to be a competition between 3 talented chefs to win a lot of money and other stuff too. And it feels like that it's not really taken that seriously in comparison to past seasons. And, you know, we do take it seriously, especially Safi. You know, she likes to theorize when we're not even doing videos. She spends hours writing theories about
It's full of, you know what?
about MasterChef Junior.
I don't have the time to do that. But I felt bad for the little girl, because she has done perfectly
Safi,
the whole time.
her name is My Fair MasterChef Junior.
And here we go. And the only reason why she was eliminated, because she made this mistake. That is it.
Yeah, what happened was...
And the other two, one played it safe and just cooks it. Well, she's cooked the entire time. Well, it's probably cooked since she was in diapers. Okay?
And it was bothersome because before she even announced what she was going to do,
they talked about it.
They referenced how she's the dumpling queen. And, you know, if that's what she's known for in the real world, that's fine. But, you know, we've had other cooking shows where chefs have gotten called out for playing it safe.
Yeah.
Like the family one, where all the shitty one that only lasted for one season, and then they just wrecked it. You know, there were these families, and all they would do is just play it safe and cook the same stuff over and over and over again. And they would get called out for it, no matter what race or ethnicity they were. They get called out for it. But it feels like these judges aren't willing to call her out on doing that. And so it feels like she is almost getting a safe cruise to the finale. And, you know, she's a great chef, but I mean, come on, like, it comes to a point where there needs to be semifinal worthy contestants and finale worthy contestants who are willing to push themselves to different levels. And she didn't push herself to a different level.
No.
She basically did a typical dish of the week. And Grayson, he did like a weird dish where it was like crab and fish on the same plate, and they kind of criticized that like, did you really need 2 types of fish on the same plate? Like, did you really need 2? And it's like, so what? Like, and then Ivy, My Fair MasterChef Junior, she did halibut on top of white and green asparagus, and she did a champagne beurre blanc sauce.
And they love that.
Which sounds pretty good. Sounds like a pretty good dish, although I don't know. I don't like those white fishes. I like trout.
Yeah, I
but
don't like that
I don't
either.
really like halibut or cod and stuff like that.
I don't either.
They're kind of boring.
Well, they're just too big and thick.
But her mistake was that 2 of her fishies were cooked perfectly, and one of them was raw.
For the pregnant woman, too, which is, oh boy.
And
not good.
They sent her home because 1 out of the 3 plates was flawed. And I think that's kind of shitty. I think, honestly, like, the fact that I would say raw food is an automatic sent home thing, but there's been so many other times in past seasons and past shows where people have had raw food and then they'll still be allowed to move on to the next round. And so I really think that they should have sent home either Grayson or Leah. And for Grayson, it would have been, you had too much. Wah, wah, wah. And then for Leah, it would have been, you made this dish already. Bye-bye. Even though it was perfect, you made it before. Or something like it. And so I really think they should have taken a chance on My Fair Masterchef Junior. Because, like, for example, in season 3, there was this girl, and she was what you call a space cadet, and she was very weird. And there was one time where she was cooking a salmon al bread, whatever the F you call it, and she undercooked the pastry, and there was so much pastry and so little salmon. And yet this other boy got sent home for having like a couple of technical issues on his plate, but he didn't undercook anything. And so the fact that they kept her, and then they sent that boy home, Amri and Kate, they sent them home, that was just ridiculous. But it set a precedent that, if you have a raw dish, maybe you don't have to go home. And so I really have to question why they did that. I think it's because Leah and Grayson are like Alexander and Dara from season 1. And they're trying to contrive like a callback type of pairing. And they've done that in every season. Where in season 2 they had the weird kid, genius cooking kid who's like Alexander. In season 3 they did that with Andrew. And it's like they do that every season now, where they have like clones of past contestants. It's really weird. Safi?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen those early seasons except for the first one, which and it may be what you say, but I thought it's just too bad that way they did that.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't ever do that again.
I agree.
That's all. I mean, what else can you do? What's done is done.
Well, what they could have done is had all the contestants come back and do like a redemption episode, and then have a third finale contestant. That would have been something else interesting to do.
But then why, if they were going to do that, they should have just had a third finale contestant in Ivy.
Yeah. Well,
and then they wouldn't have had to go to that trouble. So, or,
I don't know.
if they, let's say her dish, we were thinking about this, her dish had been perfect. In other words, the pregnant woman's dish was cooked better, and it was cooked perfectly, in fact, like the other two, but it wasn't, okay? But let's say it was. And they didn't know what to do, so they have to break the tie, because they'd be tied 3 ways, because they could not really go against Leah without saying in the beginning, you can't make what you've made before.
Yeah.
See, if they had said that would have been interesting.
And let's be honest, we all knew. We knew that she'd probably do that.
Yeah, I thought
It's
thought
just
she cooked
common
Chinese
sense.
food.
It's common sense, especially it relates to her family, and so it was obvious that she would make that.
What's she gonna do? Cook Australian food?
Yeah, like that wouldn't
Or
make
British
sense.
food? Yeah.
So, you have to think too, why did they pick that challenge? Did they pick that challenge because they knew she would be cooking that food and probably do a good job at it? What do you think, Safi?
I don't know, but you didn't know and what's interesting is when the little girl, Ivy, cooked that food, it's fish, right?
Yeah.
She told them she doesn't even like fish.
Yeah.
So here she is.
She's taking a chance on something.
She's taking a chance. She and Grayson took chances. And because they don't have this restaurant background where they grew up in diapers in a restaurant. Now they've gone out to eat to probably sounds like a lot of nice places. That's where they have acquired these tastes, and they have families who are supportive of them cooking at home, of practicing constantly and cooking for them and trying out things and not worried about what they are. If they want to cook them, we'll help you get the supplies and you cook them.
My fantasy is for the finale. I really hope that Grayson says, I don't want to cook because I'm sick of it. And so then he has the slob cook for him, and then the slob wins it all.
I don't think so.
Right, Safi?
I don't think so.
That'd be pretty funny, wouldn't it?
That is, I have no idea who's going to win.
And then Mafia Don comes in and he kills the slob for the trophy and steals it.
How about he just comes in, takes over, and he's the cook of the hour?
Because he wouldn't be able to, because he'd just be staring at the camera saying, see, I don't need Chef Gordon, I'm number one.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
We're just like making stuff up because like this is just so underwhelming, this final finale coming up.
So anyway, Thursday night, I guess Marco says.
Safi,
what?
you didn't rate the episode.
Oh.
Rate it.
I guess I'll give it a B-.
Oh, Safi, shame on you. I would give it a D-. How about that, Safi? Because this was trash. Like, this is a trash semifinal. It was a trash top three. And it's not that they're not good chefs. It's the fact that they're not competitors with each other. And so this is uninteresting. It's completely uninteresting. It's basically the equivalent of watching, like,
I think it's just because of after having a whole season of having it ruined by a certain contestant, they've had to adapt in weird ways. And this is the weird way, and where everybody else is kind of like a friend because they were trying to get through being around this person who was allowed to stay and ruin everything.
Yeah, well, they could have adapted early on by getting rid of them.
Well, but it wasn't up to them. It's up to the judges.
The judges could have done that, though.
Yeah, I know, but not the kids.
Oh, so you're saying the kids have adapted, and they're a lot.
In their
they're
weird
just like
way.
they feel good now because they can relax.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of gay.
It may be, and we don't need to say that because that's stupid. But it's just he wrecked the season, and people were sent home. Maybe they deserved to be sent home, but it was. You could have guaranteed every single team the guy was on that they wouldn't win the challenge, and it was true. They didn't, and except for the very, very beginning, which was just a miracle, because maybe the kids were that good, or the person who gave his title of being a team person,
the magician,
had already got it really. It didn't look like it, but really, he got it off to a good start. Because didn't he pick the people who were on the team?
Yeah, the magician, I think, picked the people.
Right. So, who knows? But he was like poison. It's just like you would never want somebody like this working in your office. If you had a business or an office, and you had office staff that had to interact and work together, get into meetings, you would never want to have somebody who poisons everything and doesn't get along. And because everybody would end up, instead of doing their real job, they would end up trying to please him or adapt to him, or adapt to him. And basically that's what happened in this season. And you can't have that. People, anybody out there who knows anything, you know that you have somebody who's negative like that, your business you might as well chuck it away, because they're going to ruin it for you. Just remember that after this. This is just a cooking show. It's a competition for kids, but you see it on a minor level.
It's kind of like how, remember we watched The Offer, and how you had that one guy, and he was like being abusive on set, and like he was affecting everything in a negative way, and so they had to deal with it, or the movie would have been ruined.
And also in that first season of MasterChef Junior.
Oh yeah,
you
Troy.
had that bully boy.
That piece of shit, Troy.
And he was actually okay for a long time.
He was an actor, so he was just blending in.
He was playing the part.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know that anyway when I was watching it until after it was.
It was funny because there was a contestant from the show on YouTube, and he commented on a video of someone else's, and he said that all the kids didn't like the actors, and they all could sense that they're fake and phony, and so they didn't like them there.
Yeah, and he basically, this girl, he just was in her ear the entire episode, and he basically, and she was good, even though she was younger. That was another thing came into play, is age discrimination.
Well, that was season 1.
Yeah, but still, I thought that played a factor a little bit in this one too.
Well, yeah, I think so as well.
It may not have been like on season 1.
And Troy was basically allowed to bully her off the show. And she wasn't an actress. She was a real chef contestant.
Yes.
So they allowed an actor to bully a real contestant off the show.
Yeah, and but we're going into past territory, but
we're just saying that
you can have
you
have
like these bad people,
and they poison everything. This
Yeah.
guy, he poisoned this one, and then basically poisoned the rest of the show, except he got booted off before he could finish it off. And because remember, he wanted to boot. In the first season, he wanted to boot that main guy who won the show. He wanted to boot him off, too.
Oh, yeah, they wanted to get rid of him. Well, everyone wanted to get rid of him because they thought he was the threat.
Yeah.
Because they saw he was clearly the best one there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the fact that you have somebody who's that negative can poison the well. And the well would be a contestant or contestants. And and the whole thing in the first season, in that one episode, he made everybody uncomfortable when he was doing that. I could tell. He made everybody who was doing the challenge, whether they were on the same team or not, I think he made everybody uncomfortable because they could see that it was wrong. And nothing was being done about it. That's just what happened in this season. You had this person in every single team challenge. They would go, oh no, I have to have this person on my team. Well, we'll get through it and
Safi,
I'll take control and everything will be fine. Well, it wasn't fine.
Isn't it funny that we chose to review this season? We started to review this season, because if you guys didn't know, we've been thinking about reviewing MasterChef Junior ever since we started the channel, and we watched seasons 6 and 7 while they were coming out, and we considered releasing the videos, but we thought maybe they're too mean, and so we kind of pussied out of it, and so we finally decided to do it with this season, and our first season involves like a someone who basically ruined the whole season on the show.
Yeah.
So
So
anyways,
it is what it is, basically now. So that's it. So I gave it a B minus. Marco gave it a D minus. I gave it a higher grade just because the kids were respectful of each other, and the judges, I thought, were respectful of them.
yeah, but you don't
And
have to
that
be
they
respectful and then not be competitive.
I know. But I think they had to adapt to what they were in, and the judges were the adults in the room. They're the ones that have the show, and they should have controlled what went on earlier on in the season, and they should have had a challenge like this where one contestant, and not even Grayson, who is very intellectual and makes all these unbelievable dishes, and Ivy, she's 8, okay, but she is calm, and she has come through every time. They allow one contestant who's grown up in a kitchen that makes a certain kind of food and make that food, which she's made all season long. And it really is not fair because and I like her. She's a very nice person. I'm not saying she's bad.
Yeah.
She wasn't gloating or bad. She wasn't negative.
No.
She's very nice and respectful of what everybody else did. But you're allowing her, you're giving her an advantage without saying so. And you know, you do shows where they do some, you know, contest, and one of them wins because they make something better than everybody else.
I think that's what happens every time, Safi.
But she got an advantage without it being called one. So I don't think that's fair. Okay. And they also, what Marco said would have been a great idea.
I know.
Where they made a plan to cook something.
They all have to cook the other person's dish.
That's right. That would have been a great challenge.
I know.
And it's been, I think somewhere somebody's done that before. I've seen it, but I'm not sure where or when. But I have seen that done. And it is, I wish I could remember, maybe it was Worst Cooks in the Kitchen or whatever. But
Worst Cooks in the Kitchen.
Whatever it's called. But
Worst Cooks in America.
In America. But I've seen it. And it is interesting. It makes life a lot more interesting, and the show wasn't very interesting.
Or they could have had them switch every 10 minutes, which would have probably been impossible for them.
No,
but
I don't think that would have worked.
It would have been entertaining, though.
Yeah, it would have been entertaining.
And they didn't really think about entertainment at all. Their only challenge was, you have to make 3 copies of your dish. Like, well, boo-hoo.
Yeah, so that's it.
So,
okay.
Please like, comment, subscribe.
And we'll see you soon.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.